They're the kind of girls that Mother warned you about. Hot to trot, but cold as ice. Sweet as candy, but deadly as poison. First they want to kiss you, then they want to kill you. Whether sporting poodle skirts and perms or leather chaps and six guns, these hazardous honeys mean business, and it just make it personal. They're the bad news girls, and they're waiting for you at breakfast.
Breakfast!
We begin with Crimes by Women 13 from Fox Feature Syndicate. Sadly, Grand Comics Database has no info on the creators, but don't let that stop you from enjoying Maud Bennett and her crusade against the law. And right from the jump, it's clear she's no shrinking violet. A big oil strike in Lucerne, Oklahoma draws the attention of Maud and her traveling show, who smell easy money. They set up on the midway, and Maud goes into her knife-throwing act, to the delight of the gathering crowd. But there's always one bad apple, a drunk who's determined to spoil the whole show. Maud, however, shatters the troublesome booze hound's bottle with a flick of her wrist. When he attempts to lam it, she pins his jacket to the wall with another knife, and the crowd goes wild, showing their appreciation in a rain of silver dollars. After the show, we discover the whole thing was a setup. The drunk actually Topaz, one of Maud's stooges. In spite of the night's impressive haul, Maud is looking for a bigger score, the kind that can only be had by fleecing one of the town's new millionaires. The gang quickly work out their latest racket, and the game is on. A few nights later, oil baron King Carter wins a hefty sum at the gaming tables, then heads down to the midway to see what else the night has in store. Stopping at Maud's show, Topaz, now playing a hold-up man, sticks Carter up in the crowd. Quick as a flash, Maud disarms Topaz, who is then rushed off by accomplice Gus. Carter is mighty grateful for the save, but before he can ladle out the charm, Maud invites him back to her room. Carter proposes dinner, but the blonde bombshell explains she already has plans for the night. That said, he's welcome to tag along, and Maud takes him to a high-stakes game of poker, rigged in the house's favor. When Carter runs out of cash, he foolishly puts up one of his oil wells, which he promptly loses. Easy come, easy go, right? Not quite, as Carter pulls a gun and demands all his stuff back. What a poor loser. Because there isn't a problem she couldn't lick with one yet, Maud uses a knife to shatter the light bulb. In the darkness and confusion, Gus and Topaz make off with the cash, leaving Maud nothing but the oil well deed. When she goes to claim it, Carter makes her a counter-offer of a face full of buckshot. Put out by this turn of events, she kills him and flees on horseback. Maud then vanishes into the Oklahoma hills, emerging only to rob passing payroll deliveries. It's a tough life, but it keeps her in knives. Soon a new gang has coalesced around her, and they roll into town and rob the station master. However, this proves Maud's undoing, as now her crimes are federal, and the heat is on. When Maud tracks down her former partners in crime, she strikes, but this time isn't quick enough, and Topaz gets off a shot. Dying, Maud manages to hit Gus, while Topaz is shot by... I'm not sure who this guy is. Just someone who wanted to get in on the fun, I reckon. Next up, meet Mabel Renee, Queen of the Jungle. Not the eek monkey kind, but the urban jungle, you dig? Story goes that back in 1929, an early commercial airliner went down in the wilds of Pennsylvania. All passengers perished save a small child whose cries drew helpful hobos Whitey and Frenchie to the scene. After determining little Mabel to be the only survivor, the pair take her to the crossroads and urge her to go into town. However, the impressionable child has formed an unlikely bond with the ne'er-do-wells. Calling her Mabel Renee after the French queen, the trio then head off together, where they teach Mabel their hobo ways, which is mostly just making her do all the work while they sit around. One ill-fated night, the trio don't jump in time and are caught in the train yard. A fleeing Frenchie's foot gets stuck in a rail and he ends up a colorful stain on the front of the 615 out of Boston. This is Mabel's Obi-Wan moment, only instead of escaping with the princess and blowing up the Death Star, she's cuffed and hauled off to jail. While awaiting trial, she meets the Crypt Keeper here, who insists upon being called Ma. Ma explains that Mabel shouldn't buck the law, but use it to her advantage. She's young, pretty, and smart enough to manipulate the judge, who lets her off scot-free. Outside, Mabel meets up with her cadaverous new cohort in crime, and the two plan their next move. First thing, they'll need some dough, so it's time to roll a sucker. Ma shakes down this surly sailor, with Mabel clocking him from behind. Angered, he goes for his rod, but is quickly disarmed and takes a kick to the face for his trouble. And hey, turns out the bum was loaded. Now thinking big, Ma proposes they assemble an army of criminals and take over the small town of Gans, Minnesota. And while it seems like a crazy plan, Mabel's charisma and promises of quick cash see her assemble a sizable group of vagrants and drifters. They descend on Gans and, lead pipes and table legs in hand, wreak havoc upon the unsuspecting populace. They rob everything in sight, battering down windows, doors, and any opposition to their plans. After the mayhem, the loot is quickly divvied up and the ragtag army melts back into the wild. Shortly after, at the FBI training grounds, Agent Bill Graham puts a cheap suit through its paces. Soon enough, he is assimilated into the itinerant community and learns Carter, Wisconsin is the raiding party's next target. After alerting his superiors to the upcoming attack, Graham makes his way into town, arriving just in time for Mabel's big speech. She recruits the agent as her personal bodyguard, telling him to stick close when it all goes down. Moments before the attack, Mabel reveals to Graham that she's just not feeling the whole Queen of the Hobos thing anymore, and this will be her last attack. Prophetic, as it turns out the town has already been evacuated and cops stationed on every rooftop. Mabel's army opens fire, but are outmatched by armored cars and machine guns and quickly surrender. That is, everyone except Mabel herself, determined to go down fighting. Bill stops her at the last moment from drilling a lawman, saving her from a murder charge, but she still ends up on ice for 30 years, and she's pretty salty about it. No word on what happened to Ma. Cigarette girl Doris always seems to attract the wrong type. For example, instead of simply being content with his pack of cools, this joker decides to sample everything on the menu. Only purple-suited onlooker Andy doesn't cotton to shenanigans. With a right hook worthy of Joe Louis, he knocks the clown out, then locks in on Doris. She doesn't know how to thank him, but Andy isn't short on suggestions. The two hit it off, and not just because Andy collects rally coupons. Turns out he needs a partner to sell perfume, and Doris is ideal. The two begin to work and play together, and in an intimate moment, it comes out the perfume is hot. Doris is shocked but powerless before Andy's vivacious charms. She complies, but things get complicated when chemist Arthur Hardy here is brought in to start pirating popular scents. That's minor theft and resale to counterfeiting, a pretty big jump for small-time criminals, but these two are feeling pumped and go for it. I'm not sure where they're getting the highly distinctive and uniquely branded bottles, but hey, there's only so many pages to tell this story. Doris begins to get cold feet, but a quick head adjustment from Andy sets things right. At any rate, she pops down to the local pharmacist, and the old codger is only too quick to buy into the ersatz fragrances. Is everyone crooked in this town? Soon the money is pouring in, and Doris goes on a shopping spree, buying hats, dresses, and Minx. She decides former boss Marco would be ideal to help move product, but Andy isn't so sure, as he doesn't like hard boys. Dismissing his concerns, Doris heads to the club, and yeah, Marco's all in. In fact, he's so in, he shows up to shake the trio down at the lab. They work for him now, see, and the boys are going to show that the boss means business. A brawl breaks out, but before anyone falls on a beaker of knockoff Drakkar Noir, the cops show up and bust the whole operation wide open. When all is said and done, our lovebirds are sentenced and sent to the House of Corrections to serve their terms, but a still-fetching Doris has learned her lesson and is ready for the straight and narrow. Just stay away from guys in purple suits. Next up, perhaps you've heard of girls like her. Wild teenagers who do things no nice girl would do. But don't turn away. These kids need your help. For example, Claire needs help finding her nose. Granted, it was just a couple of lines, but her face doesn't look right without it. Here we see her in happier times, clinging to mock Archie's jalopy as the teeners terrorize Riverdale. When she's not hanging from cars, she's hanging from boys, her lack of virtue making her the target of scorn among her moral superiors. Even Dick Lauder doesn't have time for her. He could do better at any dime store. Strange, she'd always been able to get a response from Dick. Frustrated by rejection, she throws herself into the arms of Neil, who not only drives us to the party, but teaches us the importance of putting all those little words in the right places. The kids head to a cellar dive on the west side, where the party is just getting started. Betty calls home, but her busy stepfather is late for the club and blows her off. With no moral guidance or common sense, she and Neil go hot-rodding in the dark, leading to a big smash-up. Remarkably, the kids survive unscathed, but stepfather decides that now's the time to start parenting and lays down the law. Not even Dick makes her feel better, so you know it's bad. In spite of stepdad's threats, Claire returns to her wild ways. She catches up with Neil for the first time since the accident, and he proposes a new kind of party. Is she game? Well, before you can say stratego, Claire is off and running. Ted Flagg's parents are away, so they head to his house. And that's when the reefers come out. You know, Mary Jane, grass, muggles, the hard stuff. Soon Claire is blasting away on a doobie and wondering why she can't feel her legs. Then the room begins spinning, and she starts to green out. Neil, on the other hand, is feeling amorous and goes in for a little cuddle. The weed apparently gives Claire super strength as she hurls a full-sized chair at the mook. Way to spice up the party. Desperate, Claire calls Dick the doormat, who dutifully picks her up and takes her home. For all that, it's Neil she can't stop thinking about, and soon enough is shotgunning hits of skunkweed to the ginger delinquent. Things are about to get hot and heavy, but stepdad arrives in the nick of time. Neil gets physical, but this isn't the old man's first dance, and he gives the brat a black eye to go with his blue balls. Claire is taking kicking and screaming from the room, but when that's not enough, stepdad handcuffs her and throws her in the sedan. When Claire snaps out of it, she discovers she's been taken to the sanitarium. She's placed in a padded cell overnight, where her frenzied protests go unheeded. The next day, the doctor tries in vain to reach her, but nothing works, until he shows her this sunny customer. Faced with the prospect of a lifetime in ugly green overalls with no hair or beauty aids, Claire suddenly sees the light and flees back to the world of sunny yellow dresses, semi-personal autonomy, and Dick. It's a new day today, in America. Let's wrap it up with a little something from Lone Rider number 2 from Feral Comics. Meet Jean Bonnet, a ruthless, brutal woman who learned too late that the law was always the winner in the deadly game of crime. As our story begins, a masked rider holds a stagecoach at gunpoint, and while the driver has enough sense not to resist, his partner isn't so smart and catches some lead in the process. Meanwhile, the masked bandit escapes with the loot. And if that silhouette didn't give it away, it turns out She's a lady. This is Jean Bonnet, and when she's not robbing stagecoaches, she runs the local dance hall. She's confronted by Mallory, an ornery stereotype type set to blow off the top of Jean's blonde head if she don't listen. He doesn't want his gal Lulu working here anymore, see? Well, no one talks to Jean Bonnet that way, and she slaps him for his insolence before turning her brutish thugs on him. The boys work him over good, pistol whipping him for good measure. Just then, Lulu appears, and patrons are treated to a free show. Even the other dancers get in on the yucks. Look at the fur fly. Lulu discovers the hard way Jean Bonnet always wins, stupid. Oh, and she's fired, too. Way to rub it in. Only Lulu begs for her job. Why, she'll do anything. That gives Jean an idea. She and Lulu quickly form a band of desperados. That's a female society of crooks, according to the narrator. To gather information, Jean returns to her childhood roots as a frog catcher, going back home to talk to old Sam. After all, he knows everything. Sam clues her into a new gold mine down the road a piece, and Jean smells her next opportunity. She and the other desperados saddle up and ride. Jean tells the others not to talk so no one can recognize their voices, then immediately breaks her own rule. But she shoots the guy, so it's a moot point. The sheriff, however, hears the shot and decides to ride over to the mine to investigate. There he finds a dead man, no gold, and a garter belt, the latter which leads him to the dance hall. He grills Jean, but she plays innocent, laughing off the idea that she had anything to do with it. With no proof, the sheriff has no choice but to watch and wait. A month passes, and Jean returns to the swamp for more information. She learns Dapper Dan has been smuggling illegals into the country, so they target his operation for extortion. Unfortunately, Lulu is chosen to do the hit, and her heart just isn't in it. She's quickly outmatched by the dapper one and ends up grilled by the sheriff in a jail cell. Lulu spills her guts, narking on Jean and the other gals. Only Jean overhears her confession, and she's a darn good shot, picking off her ex-cohort at 50 paces through the bars of a cell window. However, the sheriff now has his proof, and he pursues the fleeing filly. At the same time, Mallory shows up at the dance hall looking for Lulu. He overhears one of the desperados explaining how Jean has just killed her and is fleeing to San Jose. And hey, here's Sam, who Jean was fixing to kill to hide her trail. Only he's smarter than that, see? He tells Mallory the spot where they were planning to meet, and when Jean arrives, she discovers the terrible truth. Mallory guns her down, not just for Lulu, but as a public service to all of her victims. And the frogs breathe a sigh of relief. So what can we take away from this one? Well, I reckon it's pretty cut and dried. Pride, lust, greed. It doesn't matter how you get there in the end, when it's the destination that's always the same. What I'm saying is, keep your nose clean. Don't run with punks and troublemakers. Obey community guidelines and rules. Observe traffic lights, especially at school and rail crossings. Remember, pedestrians always have the right of way. Would it kill you to wear a nice shirt on Sunday? Your grandma's coming over. And don't track mud all over my nice clean floor. I am Jason Mink, and I'll see you next time at breakfast.